So for the Kansas City Chiefs, again, they are your reigning, defending, undisputed Super Bowl champions from 2022. And I got to admit to you, I was questioning them like pretty much everyone else because, well, of a major trade that left their receiving room pretty bare. Obviously, that trade being the one from last year, they traded away their top receiver, Tyreek Hill, to the Miami Dolphins. And people were wondering, like, why? And it turns out why is that, well, they couldn't pay him. They couldn't pay him a big fat contract anymore. So they let him get traded to the Miami Dolphins for a bunch of picks. And yeah, that's where we stand now still. So the receiving room was pretty bare. All they had was Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, and another bunch of scrubs. But then when we get to the actual season itself, still had Patrick Mahomes, and he still managed to make it work. Patrick Mahomes had another MVP year with what he had, as the Chiefs pretty much crushed all doubt. Patrick Mahomes won himself an MVP and managed to claim the top seed in the AFC, won another division title, and actually ended up getting redemption from the year prior and returned to the Super Bowl and faced Andy Reid's old team, the Philadelphia Eagles. And in that Super Bowl, they faced another 10-point deficit and an injured Patrick Mahomes, who was already injured to begin with the ankle. The Chiefs still found Mahomes' magic yet again to rally back and outlast the Eagles to claim their second Lombardi trophy in 3 years. So, yeah, credit where credit is due with not the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs. They fought back. Mahomes lifted them up to that comeback, and yeah, they got their second Lombardi in 3 years. So obviously, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you want to run it back. You got to lift up that trophy yet again and repeat as Super Bowl champions. So what do you do to get there? Well, some of my needs for them, when I talked about them in April, because that's when we were at that point with season recap month. My main thing was to find a new top receiver in the draft, because for as good as they were with, making what's due with the receiving room, I didn't think it was sustainable. I didn't think it was going to be sustainable in 2023. And I mean, obviously you have Patrick Mahomes, but teams are going to be like locked in on that now. I felt like teams were going to be locked in on that strategy. So they need to find a top receiver, because if this wasn't going to work in 2023, they're going to go after Travis Kelce, man. They also needed to find another defensive tackle alongside Chris Jones because of a certain release that happened. And then they had to find another corner in the draft because, they had some young corners there, but, your secondary is still the biggest weakness after all these years. Looking at some of their offseason moves, when looking at some of their losses, it was actually a lot of notable losses if you're the defending Super Bowl champions. They surprisingly released Frank Clark. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was for money reasons, or maybe they couldn't come to new terms on a new contract. But either way, it was a little bit of a surprising move that they released one of their key pass rushers for both their titles. So a little surprising there. They also let Orlando Brown Jr., one of their key offensive linemen, go to the Cincinnati Bengals. And then offensive tackle Andrew Wiley went to the Washington Commanders. Receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, say that a million times fast. He went to the New England Patriots. Safety Juwan Thornhill went to the Cleveland Browns. And then a receiver that's been there for quite a long time, McCall Hardman, their third receiver, went to the New York Jets. So a couple of notable losses here for the Kansas City Chiefs. And all they re-signed was running back Jerick McKinnon. So a passing down back. So, I mean, it was so-so. But then when you look at their free agency, though, they tried to make it work. And I say it was some pretty solid additions, though. So we'll see how it works out. Perhaps one of their biggest defensive signings was defensive end Charles Omenihu. He was a pretty solid addition for the 49ers. Pretty solid contributor. Safety Mike Edwards from the Tampa Bay Bucks, as well as offensive tackle Donovan Smith. And then offensive tackle Juwan Taylor from the Jaguars. So you got two replacements for Wiley and Orlando Brown. in Donovan Smith. I think Donovan Smith's pretty good, really good when he protected Tom Brady. A little weary on Juwan Taylor, though. But nonetheless, the Chiefs will find a way to make it work. And then they got linebacker Drew Tranquill from the Chargers. And then looking at their draft, some of their key notable picks include edge rusher Felix Uzama. Made it slow so I can pronounce it right. From Kansas State. So they got another edge rusher to replace Frank Clark. So I think he could probably pan out. Maybe this could be their top receiver, Rashee Rice from SMU. Maybe he can become their new number one receiver for Mahomes. I don't know. We'll see. Offensive tackle Wanya Morris from Oklahoma. So maybe a reserve lineman. And corner Chamari Connor from Virginia Tech. So, overall, looking at these moves for the Kansas City Chiefs, even though they got Rashee Rice, I feel like they still should have done a little bit more due diligence at the receiver position. It's very odd, that even as a defending champions, I get it. You probably didn't have a lot of money to spend in free agency and not a lot of draft capital in the draft, but still, you elected not to get Patrick Mahomes, another top weapon in the offense. Maybe Rashee Rice pans out, but still, you have a receiver room that has Marcus Valdes-Scantling, Rice, and what else? Maybe I'm missing someone, but you just lost Juju Smith-Schuster in free agency, but it's like, what else? What else you got? Because I got nothing for you. I really got nothing for you. Because, again, if this strategy of trying to make Mahomes look and throw to like scrubs, make them like number one receivers isn't going to work like it did in 2022, then people are just going to go after Travis Kelce and double him. And if those guys don't look like top receivers, then you're in trouble. You're in trouble. But I will say they did a nice job upgrading the offensive line after the free agency losses. Juwan Taylor, we'll see how he pans out, but I think he did fine protecting Trevor Lawrence in the last 2 years. Meanwhile, Donovan Smith, excellent throughout his time in Tampa Bay on the exterior. I think he just struggled in 2022 because of nagging injuries. So I expect him to bounce back. So looking at some of their potential key games in 2023, I pinpointed, obviously, aside from their division games against the Chargers, and maybe the Broncos as well, depending on how Russell Wilson and Sean Payne do. The very first game against the Detroit Lions. I know it's the Lions. Everyone wants to sleep on them. The Lions sleep tonight. And, everyone has their questions about Jared Goff, and I certainly do. But I would certainly not sleep on Detroit. This is certainly a new Detroit team. And like I said, everyone has their questions on Jared Goff. But if Kansas City sleeps on this Lions team, they can be looking at a real upset, regardless of the crowd factor and Mahomes and all that. They could be in for some serious trouble if they fall asleep on the Lions on opening night. And then week 11 in a rematch against the Philadelphia Eagles in a Super Bowl rematch on Monday night. So I expect this game to be a shootout, depending on where things at with both teams. But this should be an entertaining Monday night game for the Philadelphia Eagles on the road against the defending Super Bowl champions. So some of my questions for the reigning defending undisputed champions is the secondary. How are they going to develop? You have a lot of young players that actually stepped up late in the season, like first round rookie Trent McDuffie. But the problem is, they're still pretty vulnerable to the pass. Like they really struggle to cover opposing receivers, and they give up a lot of big passing plays. That corner spot opposite McDuffie is going to be in real trouble if someone in that spot doesn't come along quick. They did draft a corner by the name of Chamari Connor. I mean, he was a late round draft pick, but you never know. You never know with some of these late round picks. But nonetheless, they really got to find a way to fix their secondary because aside from the late season run, it's just always been a struggle for them. So my second thing is there going to be a breakout top receiver? I said this, I beat this horse to death, but for the Chiefs to succeed in a repeat, they can't expect that formula of a spread offense of sharing the gold to work all the damn time, especially when Travis Kelce has a down game. So someone in that receiving core has to step up for Mahomes and be that top man, not just for 1 week, not just for 2 weeks, consistently, in order for them to repeat as Super Bowl champions. So this AFC West is still expected to be tough. Whether it's the Chargers or the Broncos, the Raiders can sometimes give you trouble too. And, the rest of the AFC is going to definitely give you trouble as well, with the likes of the Bills, the Chiefs, and who knows, maybe even the Jets and the Dolphins. But Mahomes and the Chiefs have been here before. They know how to handle their business. And if the Chiefs can get another reliable weapon to step up for Mahomes and with Kelce, and they don't shoot themselves in the foot, I believe you can be looking at a repeat Super Bowl champion in the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023. I expect them to win the division again in 2023. Your repeat AFC West champions again. What is it, 7 straight years? Or 8? I don't know. But either way, expect the Chiefs to win the division yet again. And who knows? Maybe they could come out on top and run their kingdom yet again in this coming fall.